Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. I do a weekly television show called Team Chicago Challenge. It's a motorcycle racing show. I've been doing it for 30 years. I've seen all of the United States, all four corners of this country, from East Coast to West Coast. I've had a fabulous time racing motorcycles and doing the TV shows. And you can go to YouTube, which you're watching right now, and watch any of my motorcycle clips. Great stuff, truthful stuff, what the backbone of America, what makes America great. And I've had the opportunity to live this great life. So anyhow, we're going to talk about Mark Levin's book. We're going to talk about Marxism, socialism, the evilness of what's going on in this country right now because of the left, because of the progressives. You know, progressive, socialism, it's all the same. It's just like if you're a Christian, you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Now, I know Barack Obama considers himself a Christian, but he's not a Christian because when asked, he said Jesus Christ was a great prophet. No, to be a Christian, you have to believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. But that's neither here nor there. But anyhow, we're going to talk about socialism. We're going to talk about Marxism. We're going to talk about how our system is being torn down, this great conflict in America. America is as divided today as it was in the 1850s. Back in the 1850s, it was the question of slavery and the question of freedom. And it was also, which most people don't talk about, one of the reasons the Northerners fought so strongly against the South to end slavery is because they were setting up factories in the South and going to use slave labor. So for the Northerner, just during this industrial revolution, for the Northern working class person, he was competing with slave labor. They don't talk about that much, but that's one of my takes on the whole difference. Nowadays, it's socialism that believes in big government, government knows more, and individual rights, individual freedom. The left is big government. The right is freedom, you, the individual. And as you drive around Chicago, here I'm going to show you, there's a restaurant right there off the Gold Coast, off the Michigan Avenue, called the Left Coast, the Left Coast restaurant. Well, the Left Coast refers to the far left, socialism, Marxism, communism, everything that's evil, everything that's not good for the individual. And then I'm also going to show you a little clip. I'm over by 18th Street and Western Avenue. Here they got on the wall talking about Mexican Revolution, all that, and a picture of Che. Che was a communist, worked with Castro to overthrow. Sure, maybe Batista wasn't the greatest leader in Cuba, but as bad as Batista ever was, Castro, Che, and the rest of that revolution was worse. I mean, people could have rose up, they could have adopted what we have in the United States, the Constitution, and they could have been free and they could have been prosperous. Socialism, Marxism does not work. Look at Venezuela. Venezuela, a modern country, 20 years ago sitting on the top of the world, sitting on $1 billion of oil. Now, people are dying. People are dying because they can't get the medicine. Simple things. If you have diabetes, I mean, you cannot get insulin. I mean, there's no medical anymore. Our modern society has been torn down because of socialism, Marxism. They're still sitting on $1 billion, billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars of oil. But it can't be taken out of the ground because no one will fix the equipment. The leaders in Venezuela with their Marxism, socialism, progressivism has totally wiped out any value in Venezuela. And no company will come in and repair because if you can't make a profit, there's no point in being there. What we have going on the border, if the Central American countries would just adopt what we have here, property rights, I can't state it greater. Property rights. Even Pope Leo in the 1890s stated that human beings have the right to own property. That may be the greatest value we have in this country, and in the meantime we have an education system that is working against the idea of property rights, that is telling their students, oh, you should not own property, or what the new world is coming to. Believe me, it's dangerous. If you love your kids, like I have grandchildren, if you love your grandchildren, you're going to enlighten them that America is great because we are great, because the founding fathers, the way this government was set up, it's still the greatest there's ever been and ever will be. What other countries can duplicate what we have here. All them countries in Central America could turn around tomorrow. People will stay where they're at because they'll know they'll have the property rights. They will own their property. They'll be able to use that equity in their property to borrow money. I can't tell you how great it is to be an American. But anyhow, Mark Levin, here's his book. I'm going to show you the cover of his book. I have to thank Mark Levin. He's a guy who does a radio show. On Sunday nights, he's on Fox. He has Life, Liberty, and Levin, a great TV show with long discussion. And anybody disagrees with anything I have to say here today, I will meet you in debate in any, you find a hall, I will bring the TV cameras. I will debate anybody. In fact, was it C-SPAN had a show where they had Marxists on one side talking about the left, and on the right they had all these weak people supporting what is the right or what is freedom. I've explained this. You can, on YouTube, just go, Dan Schmitt, what is the right, what is the left? I explain easily what is the right and what is the left. So anyhow, let me look at my notes here. I want to get through this at a pretty good clip. All right. So let me tell you here, let me bring up, we're talking about Mark Levin in his book, and we're going to read a couple points. But let me point, I'm listening to PBS. Yes, I listen to public radio, and they're referring to an author, and I forget the name of the book, but it goes back to, tribalism, the arrival of tribalism. And as I'm listening, I am laughing. They refer to, now Newt back in, Newt came into Congress, I think, 86, 88, maybe 80, 82 during the Reagan time. It took him until 94, Newt as the new leadership of the Republicans. It took that many years of GOP, TV, and all the different things he was doing to organize people, to explain to people what conservatism means, that the majority of people in America do have conservative values. We do believe in property rights. We do believe in love thy neighbor. These are all things that have made America great. So anyhow, referring to this author, the coming of tribalism. So his contention is when Newt took over control of the House, finally, after 40 years, the Republicans had control of the House, that created tribalism. Here's the joke of that. What they are saying is the Democratic Party and how they ran government was perfectly fine. As long as the Republicans, and it was a guy from Illinois, Michaels, who was the minority leader of the House, as long as the Republicans accepted being on the back seat, being the second stage, being the second team, then everything was fine. It's just like the media. The media nowadays, I mean, they're so extremely left, but even your NBC, you watch the morning show, they're all a bunch of leftists. They are so far left. Global warming, wealth redistribution. Here, I'll give you an example. In the morning show, Al Roker, that nice, happy-go-lucky guy, doing the weather every day, recognizing 100-year-old grandmas and grandpas all over the country. Al Roker wrote a book about the flood, I think it was in New York, and it killed a lot of people. But his contention in this book is that these wealthy industrialists built this lake, blocked up a river to create a lake, made earthen dam so that they could have their country club. Well, I'm sure there's many other people besides just these wealthy industrialists that benefit by having a lake, having a reserve of water, instead of just having a river run through. Now the dam broke and people died and it was a terrible flood. But Al Roker makes it sound like these evil industrialists, because they had their private club, because they created this lake, they were evil. Al Roker makes more money than all them industrialists ever dreamt of doing. And those people built those industries on the sweat of the brow and hard work. Al Roker gives a news report, does a weather report, and he's making millions and millions and millions. He's wealthier than he ever could be. So you talk about the pot calling the kettle black, Al Roker calling these rich industrialists evil. He should look in the mirror, because he's making more money than they ever did. And the other thing with Al Roker that makes me laugh every day, any weather, anywhere in the United States, 22 million people under threat. He makes all weather conditions seem like the coming of the end. That's the insanity. So, what am I getting at here? I am pointing out that people in this country, the parents, you're sending your kids to school. These schools are educating your kids. They are ill-educating your children. It's up to the parents now to start paying attention in these schools. I'll give you an example. They don't teach cursive. They don't teach kids how to write anymore. What is the evil result of that? Kids cannot read their parents' diaries, their grandparents' diaries. I had a friend make a remark that she writes notes to her nephews on their Christmas cards or birthday cards, and they tell their aunt or their aunt that they can't read any of this. Why are we doing this? Who came up with this evil idea of not teaching kids how to write? The flow of words. Here's a former mayor of Willow Springs gave me this thing about 1919. Communist plans unfolding. This is an excerpt from a communist rules of revolution that was obtained in 1919. A, corrupt the youth. Get them away from religion. Get them interested in sex. Make them superficial. Destroy their ruggedness. Get control of means of publicity. Get people's minds off their government by focusing their attention on athleticism, sexy books, and plays. Divide people into hostile groups. That's what the left is doing, whether it's MSNBC, whether it's CNN, the people radically attacking Donald Trump. No, we are in tough times. And here, I'll give you another example. No, let's talk about Mark Levin's book. All right. Mark Levin's book, I recommend this book to everybody. Anybody who wants to know where America stands today, I want you to read this book. And he's got one chapter I think is the most beautiful 11-page chapter ever written. This is chapter number 4, called Administrative State Tyranny, which is the swamp, which means why are we draining the swamp. So Mark Levin explains here our founding fathers, the whole principle about America, that men control their destiny, that the government of the people, by the people, for the people. So let me read here. In a civic society, the individual is recognized and accepted as more than just an abstract statistic or faceless member of some group. Rather, he is a unique spiritual being with a soul and a conscience. He is free to discover his own potential and pursue his own legitimate interests, tempered, however, by a moral code that has its foundations in faith and guides his life and all human life through the prudent exercise of judgment. Human beings are human beings. They are not God and they are not beasts. They are in between, directly from God. And then Mark also in the same chapter, because if you listen to the people that believe, your Obamas and your Hillary Clintons, that they have all the answers, that they know that we have to have bigger government. We need people, we have to have professionals. This goes back to Woodrow Wilson back in the 1916, 1910s. He was the start of the progressive movement, where there has to be professionals that will take care of things. And Mark talks about it here, where he says, however, despite the extensive writings about supposed professional governing class with specialized enterprise that will presumably bring not just order to chaos, but utopian-like perfection to humanity. It is fair to ask, who are these guardians? What makes them experts? Are they experts by specific technical training or just generalists? Are they experts by graduating from Ivy League schools? Are they experts by experience, knowledge, or judgment? Are they experts by training? Think about that. Have you ever been to City Hall, local City Hall, or you ever been down to your state capitol? You ever been to Washington, D.C.? Have you looked at all the bureaucrats? I remember when I used to get my food license, when I was Coffee Dan. There was a time I was Coffee Dan, I had a coffee truck. And I always wanted to get that #1 mobile food dispenser license. And I would go down to City Hall on January 2nd, as soon as I was done with my route, parked underneath Wacker Drive and go see if I can get the #1 food license. And I would stand at the counter. There'd be 20 people in that department. All of them trying to ignore the counter because they don't want I mean, this is the comedy. Who are these people that you're going to allow you? It's like the bureaucratic people in the education. I mean, the teachers complain that they want a little more money, and then you find out that you got in the city of Chicago, principals are making $200,000 a year, $250,000. Executives in the school board making $300,000. Then their pensions are even greater than that. You want to talk about insanity? No, I think this book is a great book. And let me continue on by a couple of what my friends. I have one friend that says, national health care would be great if we could afford it. No. National health care is evil. Right now you got the Democrats. They want Medicare for all. If you work and been working in America since 1964, you've been paying 2.5% of your income. Even the multimillionaires are paying 2.5%. People making $1 million a year, people making $10,000 a year are paying 2.5% for their Medicare. And Medicare is running out of money. So even the millionaires and the billionaires are paying their 2.5%. There should be a lot of money there, but Medicare is going broke. And then you're going to let everybody have Medicare? It's insane. It's totally insane. And you want some bureaucrat in the federal government determining if you live or die? No, we had a great insurance program in this country. And yes, people with pre-existing conditions were covered exactly in 45 states as positive. I know this as a fact. So when they talk about pre-existing conditions, any Democrat is lying to you. And I just as soon punch him in the nose as listen to him lie. All right, another friend. It says, governments do great things. Look how well they fight wars. Yes, they do fight wars very well. Our military is the best military in the world. We have great people and come up with great products. World War II is a good example of when America goes to work, America can do anything. But I don't want government micromanaging my life. Do you understand that? Okay. Another one, Social Security. Oh, Roosevelt was so great to come up with this Social Security program. What I have to tell people, Roosevelt, being elected president in 1932, extended the Depression. He created the Great Depression. The government, the country could have easily been turned around. It was World War II that finally saved it. So this Great Depression that took place here, that was extended because of Roosevelt, also draw down Germany with help bring up Hitler to take over control of Germany. And finally, World War II is what got our economy going again. Social Security is 15% of your income. I know it's only 7.5% on your check, but it's 7.5% from your employer. So if your employer employs you, it's 15%. If that money, if you controlled 15% of your income was put in a fund and just was sitting in the stock market with its ups and downs and whatever, and then when you die, if you don't use it, your family gets it. So Social Security works. I do benefit. I do get a check. But believe me, at 15% of your income, there are many other ways that it could be better invested. So no, Roosevelt was not a great president. So Medicare for all will never work. And goofy politicians, how about Cuomo, the governor of New York? America was never that great. You moron. I'd just as soon slap him around as talk to him. That's how I feel. A moron. This guy, his father was governor. They got great wealth. His brother's a guy on CNN, is he on? Morons. That's all I got to say. They want to come and debate me? I'll travel to Albany. I'll debate Governor Cuomo any day of the week if we want to talk about, is America great? I know. I've seen America. I've traveled America. It is the greatest country in the world. So, who are these folks? Let me wrap this up by just saying this. This is my challenge to parents out there. It is time for you to get control of your schools. Every time I hear of a school, it's a college prep. You know what that says to me? That this school is not going to teach your kids anything. It's only going to teach them enough to get them into college and then hope that college takes care of it. When I look on the south side of Chicago, these poor kids that are killing each other, it's because they get no training in school for any average drug dealer. 15, 16-year-old drug dealer, if he had a hot dog stand and he had a legitimate, all that capitalist knowledge that he knows for being a drug dealer, handling money, counting money, if that was put into a direct business, business is the key. And why am I a Republican? I have to say it again and again and again, and I'm going to tell you why. Richard J. Daley, in 1973, passed the head tax. These, and even Mike Reichel, I'm going to go back and study this, but I used to read Mike Reichel, the columnist in the Chicago American newspaper. He was even for this head tax. The most evil tax there ever been. The tax companies for hiring people. How evil can you be? In 1970, there was 400,000 manufacturing jobs in Chicago. The head tax, Richard J. Daley, the Democratic Party, drove all those manufacturing jobs out. So if you're an average young 15, 16, 17-year-old black kid on the west side, on the west side, on the southeast side, south side, if you want a good job, working for manufacturing is still great jobs. You learn so much. It's not just putting a screw in and something running down the conveyor belt. People that work in factories that build things take great pride in what they're doing. For the average kid living on the south side, west side, they need a car to go to work. They need insurance to go to work. They cry, we need jobs. Well, it was your party. It was the Democratic Party of Cook County that drove these jobs out. Now, the Richard J. Daley passed the head tax that Chicago needed the money. They didn't need the money back then. It's so evil. I honestly believe that I think it was a racial move on his part. He figured if he got rid of the factory jobs, he'd get rid of the black people, and he would clean up Chicago. I don't know. I don't have a fact on that. But if anybody wants to debate me on that issue, I'm willing to debate you. So you can always get hold of me. My website is teamdan45@gmail.com. Beware of those that promise you this utopian dream. We live in the greatest country in the world because of the freedom, because of property rights, because of the banking system, because of love of thy neighbor. Why do people cut their grass and want their house to look nice? Because they love their neighbors. America is the continuation of the idea of Western civilization that we can trace all the way back to ancient Greece, through the Roman, to Western European culture. The idea of unions, of trades, of craftsmen, guilds, carpenters, electricians, pipe fitters. This is all Western civilization. They don't have unions in China. They don't have strong unions in Russia. It is us, the United States of America. The rest of the world should learn. These people, instead of wasting your time trying to get into our country, these people should be fixing their own country. And the 10 million Mexicans that live in America, wouldn't it be great if you could take some of your money back, you could live in Mexico, own property, you wouldn't have to live up here. It's all evil. That's all I can say, and I hope you learned something. My email is teamdan45@gmail.com. Anybody wants to come on and debate me, you find the hall. I'll bring the TV cameras. I'm ready to argue that America is great, and thank God for Donald Trump. He may be the man we need at this time of great threat from the leftists, from the Marxists, from the Maoists. And thanks for tuning in. I hope you learned something. Don't forget my email, teamdan45@gmail.com.